Now for the past couple months we've been building this E30. We've been trying to put a V8 from an LS400 in it, as it's just going to be a drift car. Now the biggest problem we've had so far, and it's caused an absolute setback, is I cannot get the manifold to fit around the steering knuckle. Even with a custom knuckle, it just keeps hitting. So the only thing left to do was to chop it up and make it ourselves, and that's where we ended the last video. So today we're going to be attempting to make our own manifold. FYI, I am not a welder. So in the end of the last video, we actually found some 1.75 inch pipe, which is what the manifold uses standard. We found this lying around and I've somewhat made a route that it has to go. We have to hug the gearbox. So I tacked on the two pipes on the position that they kind of have to be, and then we can remove the manifold and start doing the tough job of joining these two things together. Now I spent a day trying to do this cleanly by using different hole saws and blah blah blah, and of course the only tool that works in life is, you guessed it, a fucking grinder. Now using a grinder obviously didn't create the smoothest of circles, so I tried to smooth them out by using a die grinder. Obviously you can't weld a flat bit of pipe to an ovaled out bit of pipe, so I have to oval out the new pipe. Listen, I don't know the terminology, I don't even know what I'm doing, alright, just trust the process. Yep, there we go, okay, see what I mean? Okay, we see what I mean. Now it's probably a little bit too hasty here because I should have cut it longer and then took off. I cut it a little bit short, but it is what it is. I'm definitely not doing all that again. So let's weld it in place. There's no point tacking it because I need it to cover the hole. So if we need to move anything, we're going to have to adjust the other bit. So let's weld it up as best as I can. Now it was really hard to weld. It was welding stainless steel to some kind of cast. It was absolute nightmare. The stainless kept blowing through. I made it pretty at first and I didn't trust it, so I just went over it. I'd rather it be stronger than look pretty, but... So as you can see, we're very close. All that needs to happen is this bottom one, we just need to just rotate to the left. Okay, so we're a little bit, we might just need to put another little piece. So because the manifold is in two halves, when we've got it off the car, we have no idea where they sit in relation to each other. So I've bolted both the manifolds up and I'm going to weld them together, and that way I know exactly what orientation they sit on the manifold at. Now with the manifold off the car, we can actually make this work without adding different pieces in. You can see how it lines up pretty well. We might just have to bridge a couple of little gaps with some weld. Don't take my hands off, mate. It's about bob on that, isn't it? Almost. Okay, yeah. Oh, the gas ain't on. The gas ain't on.
Are you joking?
What are you doing?
Fucking gas! You a gas!
Why
you a gas!
Why do I keep it? I thought it sounded.
Look at
I thought it sounded a bit.
It's like it's
Right.
like a load of poo on it.
Ow! Alright, ow! Oh, that's enough, right. Yeah, I'm alright there.
Put it.
Right,
No, hey, Steph, have you?
got a black bit.
What's that birdie spill?
That'll do.
That's it.
Right, I've got a job of filling. That's doable, that's alright. That's alright, that. So we lined it up where it was the most equal on each bit, so let's get bridging some gaps. And this is how it's ended up. Not the best welds in the world, but I'm happy with that, I think. I have gone a little bit overkill. I've gone with structure rather than prettiness. So I've gone over it like 2 or 3 times in some bits just to make sure there are no holes. But, yeah. With the manifold made, there is something which I'm a little bit worried about because I can't have that 1.75 inch end. It needs to be a 2.5 inch end. But I don't know how much space I've got in there. I don't know what fitting I'm going to use when I get the exhaust done and blah, blah, blah. And I've kind of just at a dead end. So I'm going to forget about that now. I'm just going to make sure the engine actually goes in and goes in the car. Once the engine's in, we can kind of see if we can just lengthen that 1.75 a little bit longer. But I'm hoping that once the engine's in the car, I can see that. I go, oh, we've got a load of room, so whoever's making the exhaust, they can weld on whatever flange they want to weld on while it's in the car. Positive thinking, but you've got to be positive sometimes. But first of all, before we put the engine in, I've been putting this off for ages, and we've got to do it. The timing belt on this car is absolutely horrendous. I don't think it's ever been done, and it's all cracking. So we've got a timing belt on the floor over there. I'm shitting my pants, and we're going to do a timing belt. This is definitely not going to be a how to do a timing belt. Luckily for me, there's a guy on YouTube who I followed step by step. But first of all, we just got to take the timing belt covers off. It's happening again. Everything's just taking 5 times longer because Lexus clips are absolutely shocking. They do not come undone. I actually had to cut the alternator one because it just would not come off. You've got wiring looms going through the timing covers like this. So you can't get them off because you're going to trace all the wiring back, and the wiring's back to this shit connector. You can't get the connector off. And like, this is literally just pushed onto some metal, and the metal's rusted, and it's rusted around the plastic, and you can't get it off, so you can't get the timing cover off. It's just like little things like that that are just going to make this absolutely frustrating as anything. First of all, we've got to remove the 2 distributors. Then remove the tensioner, and then the fan housing as well. Okay, so now it's actually the timing fun part. So we've got to get the engine at top dead center. So we're going to turn the crank bolt at the end. I can see a timing mark on this cam. I'm struggling to see a timing mark on this cam, but I haven't really looked that much. I'm just going to put this one to top dead. So we've got a line here and a line here. And then hopefully I can kind of see where the line is meant to be on this one. Because right now, I can't see shit on that side. Okay, so there we go, we're timed up. This mark's aligned. This mark's aligned. So now, hopefully we can see where this mark is meant to be. And I can just see a tiny little line. So you want to sit straight onto the engine. As you can see, those 2 are in time. This is in time. And this one's really hard to see a mark, but you can just make out a little tiny mark there, and I think that's got to be it. Right, now we're in time, we can take off the crank bolt. I've got the biggest gun in here because I don't want this to move. I just want this crank bolt to come straight off. Now sometimes the crank pulleys pull off, sometimes they come off with a little bit of a mallet, sometimes you've got to use a crank pulley like I had to do here. So after you remove the old belt, I just cut it. You need to start taking the runners off. And you can see all of the cracking the whole way along the belt. Now while we're in here, we're of course going to do the water pump. This is actually the thermostat housing. It's really weird. It's bolted to the water pump, but it's just pushed into one of the top coolant pipes. So trying to release that is quite difficult. Now these water pumps are actually siliconed on from factory, so it's actually quite difficult to remove them. And with everything being aluminium, it's quite difficult to pry against things as well. So take your time with this and don't break anything. On the video that I'm following on YouTube, he has grooves in the engine and on the water pump. So in other words, the surface isn't flat. So he says you have to use sealant. Whereas on mine, it's all a flat surface, and my water pump has come with gaskets as well. So I'm going to clean it off and see what I want to do. I'm probably going to use a bit of sealant and the gasket that's come with the kit. So I'm just going to get a razor blade and we're just going to clean all this off. So again, our water pump has no grooves. It's a flat surface there, it's a flat surface there, but I'm not taking any risks. So I'm going to put a layer of sealant around, put the gasket which come with the kit, and then another layer of sealant around, and then put the water pump on. Now my thermostat housing has actually got that groove, so we need to clean all the old sealant, and then we're definitely just going to use sealant on this one. Before we put the new timing belt on, I'm just going to paint mark the timing belt marks, just because they are quite difficult to see. So when I've got the belt on, I want that to be really clear. So we'll bolt on the new rollers to the engine, and we can actually start feeding around the new timing belt as well. Now this is where we've got a really big issue. You can see how much slack is in the timing belt. Okay, so the belt's on, but I've got a lot of slack here. Got a lot of slack. It's more than I want, to be fair. The only problem I can think is that I've been sent the wrong belt.
I'll send you my address, send me that back.
What, just the belt? Okay, I was going to say, I can't take everything off.
No, everything else is spot on. But like I said to you, for some reason on these cars, so I've only had one. That's why when I went to on my system check, I remembered that one of these cars had a 290 belt.
I've just called them and I've just said it, and he said, do me a favour and count your teeth on the old belt and tell me if it's 209. So I counted the teeth and it's 209. The new belt has 211 teeth. So the new belt is 2 teeth longer. He says that he's had this once before. He says for some reason some engines come with a shorter belt. I'm not really sure what the hell's gone on, but the belt is too long and I need to send that belt back and wait for another one. So I actually just rang GSF and just checked what belt size they stock, and it was a 211 teeth, which is the belt that this company sent me as well. So it must just be a weird thing with some engines, and they're being serious. It must just be a weird thing with some engines, and some engines are 209 and 211, but I need a 209 teeth, and most places stock a 211. Of course, it's me. Moral of the story, guys. When your timing belt turns up with the right amount of teeth, don't get too excited and jumping about and knock your head on the door frame. I've just split my fucking head open. Yeah, no joke, I actually got excited when my timing belt turned up, cracked my head open, and then had to go and get it glued back together at a hospital. But anyway, let's get back to the timing belt. So the right timing belt turned up. This is a 209 teeth, and as you see, that's without the tensioner pulled, and it's pretty much tight. So I reckon I'm going to be able to spin it around a couple of times without the tensioner being up. So if I pull that tensioner off, I'm going to have to take it off and then push it back in. So to make sure everything's perfect and make sure everything's in timed, I'm going to do two full rotations of the engine. So I've just rotate the engine twice, and we are lined up on all 3 marks. So we're going to go yeet. And I've also realised that this front bash bar, which has been welded in, is actually bolted. It's bolted here and it's bolted here. This might look like a big thing, but this means we can put the gearbox on the engine and then put it in all as one. Instead of having to come up, we can just push it straight in. So I'm going to finish off this timing belt because it's been taking too long, so I've been waiting for it. So we're going to come back in a second when it's all built up. Right, so where are we at with everything? I'm going to be moving into this bit of the unit, so I've just painted the floor this morning. Where are we at with the E30? So yesterday the brake lines come, all the rear subframes back on the car, and yesterday the brakes came. So all the brakes are now on the car as well. We just need to go next door and get a new bolt for the coilover to the hub, because somehow I've lost it. All the timing chain is back together as well. The timing belt's back together. The engine is ready to go back in. What I realised as well is that we can actually take this off. So what we can do is we can put the gearbox on and we can put the engine in with the gearbox. I'm probably going to have to cut a lot of the tunnel off here to get it to go in, but that is actually easier than trying to lift the gearbox up when it's on the ramp and blah, blah, blah. So what we're going to do is, I'm waiting for one little adapter to go on the manifold, because I need to finish the manifold before it goes in the car. So what we're going to do, I've got tons of brake line, tons of brake line, tons of brake fittings, tons of T-pieces, because the BMW is metric and everything for the hydro and the cylinders and the pedal box is Imperial. So we've got a mixture of Imperial and metric brake fittings. So we're going to have to make all our own brake lines. So we've got a little pipe cutter here. We've got around 5 meters of copper cable. Let's start running all the brake lines. Now, as you may or may not know, we have a... I need to cable tie this out of the way. We have a pedal box in the car, so we've also going to have the hydros. The hydro's going to be sitting here, so we're going to have to run every single brake line ourselves. Now these are our feed, so all we're going to have to do is just run the external fittings. So I need to figure out which one of these is the back and which one's the front. One's a smaller cylinder. This is a 0.75 and that's a 0.625. So the 0.75 is going to be for the front. So this one we're going to go up here and we're going to T-piece it and we're going to send it to each axle. The rear, first of all, it's going to come out the rear, into the hydro, which is going to be around here, out the hydro, to the back, T-piece to the rears, and then the clutch line, we're probably just going to get a braided line made instead of using copper. So once the gearbox is in, we'll get a clutch line which goes through here. So we've got the main thing, it's just we're going to fill these cylinders up and get the brakes working. Now this side, for some reason, doesn't have the brake line, but this side does. And then this side, I believe, actually has the rubber hose as well. Yeah, the rubber hose is on, so that is all sorted. But we're going to have to take that rubber hose off and take it to a brake line shop so they can make another one, and we'll probably just get 2 braided lines when we're there. We're going to run the hard line out from the pedal box. We're going to T-piece it around here. The old hydro cylinders, which are being used for the pedal box and the hydro, they use Imperial. And I've ordered some 3/8 Imperial threads to go in the outlet of the hydro cylinders, and they're too short. Okay, so I just popped to a there was a fitting company around the corner called Abbey Hose in Grays. I've just popped there, and they had everything. They even had the brake line Imperial fittings as well. So I've got all these here now. So I've cancelled my my Amazon order, and they were saying that this brake line is really weird. Obviously, on one end you're meant to have a ball, and one end you're meant to have a taper. The BMW, the side that goes into the caliper is flat. It's neither a ball, neither a taper. And they were saying they've never ever seen a hose like that before. So they've asked if I can just bring the caliper in, and then they can just make one to suit the caliper. You can see it's not a taper and it's not a ball. It's just flat. They were saying it looks like someone's messed about with it, but they didn't want to make one and it not fit. So we'll whack the caliper off and we'll take it around to them. Okay, so now we've got the correct brake unions, we can actually start running the lines. So we need to just get the length first and make sure they are in the right position. Then we can actually start making the ends. So we're going to make a ball or a taper. Now, the ball and the taper are the two different ends that you're going to put on the brake line, and that basically means a male or a female end, and it all depends on the type of fitting that you're screwing it into. Two pictures on the screen here, the one on the left is a ball and the one on the right is a taper. So if you can see on the inside of the brake line here, there's almost like a concave end. Now this is where you need to make a ball. So the ball of the brake line will sit against that concave, and then you screw it in and tighten it down. I've got the braided lines done. This is the old line, these are the new lines. Shout out to these, literally around the corner. So let's get home and let's start doing the rest of the brakes, and hopefully we might have a full system on the brake. All the brakes might be complete today, which is good news. Now, because we had one brake line, we actually had one of these on the other side, which just sits on there and just clamps the brake line to this bracket. I've only got one of them, so I'm either just going to make another one out of some thin metal, or if I can order one on eBay and it's cheap, I'll just get another one. So that's our braided line. Sorry, no it's not. This is our copper line. We're going to put this on here, and then we're going to bolt the braided line to it. And then that's, oh, wrong way. Wash. And then, yes. That's the fronts in now. I used my new riv nut gun, and we put a riv nut in there. I'll show you next time, but I almost messed it up, so I didn't film it. We've got the brake line coming from the front. Obviously, we're going to tidy it up a little bit into this T-piece. This goes down to the side, and we've got the braided line. This goes down here into the braided line, and that's the fronts done. Now the rears are going to run from here. The hydro is going to be here somewhere, so we can't fully do it until obviously I put the hydro in, but I know it's going to somewhat probably just be down here somewhere, or down the side. So the rear is going to come from here to the hydro, through the hydro into the rears. Now luckily, if I crawl under the back of the car, luckily there's a T-piece there. I've just took the line off, and I've just took all of the fuel lines and all of the standard brake lines. I've just removed them from the bottom of the car just to tidy it up. But we can actually run using this T-piece. So what we can do is I'll probably just go through this hole here, through this hole here, into the T-piece, and then straight to the hydro. So I've got some more copper line here. So we're going to run that route, and we can actually get it plumbed in on this side. So I couldn't finish all the brake lines because I need to run one from the pedal box to the hydro. Instead of having like a brake switch as you normally do, you normally have like a little brake switch at your brake pedal, and when you press that switch, it turns on the rear brakes. Instead of trying to fab something up, you can actually get like a pressure switch. So when the fluid goes through, it illuminates the brake line. So obviously he's ran the bolt up from the hydro into the pressure switch, and then obviously to run to the rear lines, he has this little 45-degree banjo. And it's got a really, really horrible, weird thread on it. And I took it to Abbey Hose, and they said it's a Goodridge. It's a Goodridge thread. So this is going to cause a little bit of a delay, because I cannot get Goodridge, or I don't think I can get, well, definitely can't get them in any shop. There's three things we can do. One thing is we can order a different banjo, one with just a 3/8 or an M10, which is what you're used to seeing instead of a Goodridge. The second option is to try to find a Goodridge brake union from here. Again, we'll have to do that online. The first one we'll have to do online as well, because shops don't really sell them. Or the third thing we can do is we can just get them to make a braided line for this, from this to the hydro. That's going to be the most expensive, but I can probably get that done on the day. So I'm going to try and do one of the first two. We're going to try and find a new banjo with a normal thread, or just try to find a good ridge brake union. So I had a look online, and it's really hard to find some 45 degrees which go to a brake union for some reason. I'm not sure why. So I think the easiest thing to do would just be to get Abbey Hose to make a braided line from there to the hydro. It's only around ½ a meter and it's not going to be that expensive. But I cannot do that until I've got the hydro in place. And I can't put the hydro in place until I've got the gearbox in place. So the next video, we're going to be putting the engine and the gearbox in the car. Oh my god, we're so close!